All right, so today we are gonna look at knitting. And knitting is made up of two main stitches, the knit stitch and the purl stitch. So this video is gonna be about the knit stitch. There are two main ways to knit, and I'm gonna show you both. The first one that I'm gonna show you is the one that I don't normally do. But it involves holding the working yarn in your right hand. So again, with knitting, you have two knitting needles. You have the yarn, you've got the tail of the yarn down here, and then you've got the working yarn right here. And I've gone ahead and knit a few rows. This is what happens. This is what it looks like when you knit every row and you go back and forth. So you're turning the work. This kind of a stitch is called garter stitch. That's what the pattern is. You're just doing knit stitches back and forth. And you're doing it straight. So I'll show you what you do in order to knit. And this is going to be knitting English style. It's also called throwing, all right? Because you throw the yarn over as opposed to keeping it taut. So the first thing you want to do with knitting is there are two ways that you could go into the stitch. You can go into the stitch from this side or this side. With knitting, with a knit stitch, you always go in from this side. So you go into the stitch from the opposite side, always from the front, or almost always from the front, but from the far side of the stitch. All right, so we'll go into the stitch like that. And you can see I'm still crossing the needles in the back. So we've got that. And then I'm gonna take this yarn and I'm gonna wrap it around from the back. I'm gonna wrap it around and I'm gonna pull it kind of tight. And then I'm gonna take my needle and I wanna pull that yarn through. So you can see it's right there. So I pull it through and then I pull the other stitch off. And now I have a knit stitch on this needle. You're gonna be transferring these loops. You're gonna be transferring loops from one needle to the other, essentially. You're gonna be making new loops and transferring them to the other. So I'll do it again. So I go in on the far side, I pierce it, I bring the yarn around that way, I bring it back through, and then I bring it off the needle. All right, and then you can see I've got two stitches on this needle. So I'll do it again, in that way, bring the yarn around, bring it back through, and then off. So the way that I like to teach this, the way that I like to remember this, I saw this on the internet, I did not make this up, but I think it's hilarious. So we stab it, we strangle it, we rip out the guts, and then throw it off a cliff. All right, stab it, strangle it. Whoop, I got both sides there. Strangle it, rip out the guts, throw it off the cliff. And there I've got 5 knit stitches on this side. And you can see what they look like. They look like little V's there. And those are the stitches that you have made. So you'll just go all the way across. And this method is a little slower than continental style, which is gonna be the next video. Ooh, don't go over both needles there. But it can be a little easier when you're starting out. Here we go, last one. Bring it through, and then all the stitches are now on this needle. So to do the next row, I just switch hands, all right? And you always wanna start, when you're knitting, you wanna start with the yarn in back. I didn't mention that before. Yarn will stay in back, and then you bring it around like that, all right?